Hello guys, welcome back to the Eat Like Ruby podcast. I am back doing another episode in our Fat Loss Phase series, but I'm going to continue on with our convo about training. So in our last 2 or 3 episodes, we've been covering like training, burning calories, how that factors into the fat loss equation, toning up, the point of training. Like there's just been a few things we've covered. And what I actually do want to cover today is the point of training. I feel like that's going to be the name of the episode. Something about like, why do we train, or what's the point of training, or something like that in a positive way. I feel like I made that sound a bit negative, but really the reason I want to do this episode, like I said, we've touched on a couple of little training things in the recent episodes. And I just think it's like cool to have the information and the understanding of all of this stuff so you can be clear on why you train. Like, why do you go to gym, or why do you go to your gym or your group fitness thing or your sport or whatever you do? And I'm going to cover that in this episode, like the different things we can do. And I just think it's important to actually truly understand why you go and do what you do for exercise. If you don't do any, well, this episode probably won't apply too much to you, but this episode might help you realize what you could do or what you might want to do, etc. Because the real reason I want to do this, and the thing I just want to cover, is I think it can be common for people to feel like they should just go to the gym in that energy of like, oh, I should go, or like I'm trying to be good, it's the right thing to do, etc. And obviously, I just want to preface this episode by saying like exercise can be unreal for health for so many different reasons. Like I'm not going to debate that at all, but I think it's important to just understand what you actually personally are getting out of it. What are you getting out of it and what you want to get out of it? Because I think if we go into training in that mentality of just like, I should be doing this, it's the right thing to do, it's almost like what we've spoken about over the last few weeks, where people can have nutrition habits and things in place just because they feel like it's quote right and I'm trying to be good. But if you don't actually understand how what you're doing is adding up to move you in different directions and what's actually required for you to do to move in the direction that you want to go, then we've got to bring it back to the fact that we do these things every day, or we try and do these things, we force ourselves to do these things every day. And if we don't even really know what we're doing and why we're doing them, there's a huge disconnect there. And a couple of episodes ago, maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago, we spoke about the fact that like, quote, burning calories isn't really a huge reason that we should train, or isn't a reason we should train at all. The amount of calories that we burn in training, in standard like everyday training, is very small, it's very minimal, and we can absolutely achieve fat loss without training. And again, I just want to point out, like, there's still so many benefits to exercise, but if we're looking at people thinking that they need to train or they need to do things in particular to achieve fat loss, I have seen hundreds of women achieve fat loss without exercising and without going to gym and factoring in intentional exercise into that plan, and still having a very effective fat loss phase. If we think about the fact that fat loss is achieved through calories in versus calories out, we spoke in that episode a few days ago about the fact that calories out comes from so many things outside of exercise. So we can still absolutely have an effective calorie deficit in place, aka more calories going out than coming in, and therefore still achieve fat loss without actually burning calories through exercise. So if you don't understand that, definitely go back and listen to like the last 3 or 4 episodes. If you've got a fat loss goal and you don't understand all of that, definitely go back and listen to the last 3 or 4 weeks of the podcast. But then that kind of brings us to the question, or the point of today's episode, of like, okay, cool, well, what should we train for then? And really what I want to point out here is we can train for so many things. And I just think it's really cool to understand that this is a decision that you can make, and this is a conscious thing that you can do, because again, a lot of people feel like they have to train, they should train, it's the right thing to do. And then usually when we're in that mentality, we're kind of like dragging ourselves through workouts or dragging ourselves to the gym, just kind of half-assing things or picking random machines and doing random shit because we feel like we should. But if we know that we can achieve fat loss and not factor training into that, then we can remove the thing of like, oh, I should go to the gym for fat loss reasons, right? And then again, we come back to that question of like, well, what should I go for then? This is where I think we need to do like an individual assessment and think, what do I actually want to do and what do I want to get out of it? And what I mean by that is, if we think about exercise, the possibilities are endless. We can go to gym and lift weights. Absolutely. I'm all for that. That's what we do in Eat Like Ruby. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Or we can go to things like group fitness classes that might be like a combo of weights and cardio and different things. We can go to classes that are things like Pilates, Reformer, etc. We can obviously play sport. We can do individual sports, even shit as simple as walking. Obviously, people get into running or different sports like that. So we can do so many different things. And I think the first question we want to ask is just like, what do I want to do? What do I like doing? Because we know that exercise is obviously beneficial for physical health, mental health, etc. So I think ideally we want to find some form of exercise that we can do on a consistent basis. If we think about that question of what do I like doing, well then if we can answer that and put training in place that we like, we're going to absolutely increase our likeliness of sticking to it and therefore increase the consistency. Again, bring that back to the fact that if we want consistent exercise in place to support our health, our likeliness of doing something consistently is going to increase if we actually enjoy that thing that we're doing. So that's why I think it's so beneficial to just ask, what do I like to do? Do I like to go to gym and lift weights? Would I prefer to go to a group thing? Would I prefer to play a sport, go for a walk, take up running, etc.? Or do I want to do a combo of those things? And then the second thing I think we want to ask is, what is my goal, or what is the thing that I would like to get out of exercise or training? And I think it's important to understand that if we have physique-based goals, like what we spoke about in the recent episode with toning up, building shape through our legs or our abs or our glutes or anything like that, we want to understand what's required to build a physique in that sense. So there's a very big difference between training for fat loss versus training to build a physique. They're actually like opposite things. So we don't need to train for fat loss. If we want to build a physique or build shape or build certain body parts, like I said, a booty, shoulders, build our arms, legs, etc., we want to make sure we've got effective training in place for that goal. And that ties in with what I said before, where we might have goals to do that, but we also might have goals to do other things, and we can do both. So again, asking those questions, what do I want to do and what do I want to achieve through my training? So you might sit there and go, yeah, I definitely want to build a physique. That's the number one thing that I want to do. And what I want to do is go to gym. I love resistance training. I love lifting weights. Therefore, right there, you could piece together a plan. It's like, okay, cool. I'll go to gym. I'll lift weights. How many days a week can I go? How do I structure my sessions across those days? Side note, this is literally what we do with our personalized training clients in Eat Like Ruby. So you can apply for that if this is your jam and this is your goal. But then you can formulate your plan from there and go, I've now got a plan in place that I want to do and is going to move me towards my goals. On a similar note, you might have some of those goals. So you might say, yeah, I definitely want to build my legs. It's really common for girls to come into Eat Like Ruby and go, I want to build my legs more than my upper body. Like I want to build my upper body a little bit, but I want to build my legs even more. So we might write a training program that's like 2 legs and 1 upper, or 3 legs and 1 upper, or 2 legs and a full body. Like there's so many ways we can structure that. But the point and the reason I'm bringing that up is because you might have goals to build some parts of your physique. So you want to make sure you've got like the structured training in place for that. But then you might also have a goal of like, I want to run twice a week as well. So then you can step back and go, cool, how do I formulate this plan to factor in both of those things that I want to do and I want to include? And then on the flip side, some people like to use training purely for things like mental health or social fitness. So you might not actually really care what it is that you do. You might just have a gym that you love to go to, or a class that you love to go to, or like a group fitness place where you see the same people every day and you're like, I actually don't care what the session is. I just like to go down there for my social time and it's like good for my mental health and it's just a feel good time. That's awesome. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And again, that's where you'd sit there and go, what is it that I want to get out of my training? I want to get social fitness and I want to feel good mentally and physically after the sessions. And then asking, what do I enjoy doing? I enjoy going to this particular class or this particular gym where they do those sessions every day. Awesome. There's your plan. And then again, we can combine some of these things together. So you might have a goal where you go, I really want to build my legs. So I'm going to go to gym twice a week and do really structured, intentional leg sessions. But then I also want a little bit of social fitness. So I'm going to go to this 1 class or this 2 classes every week alongside those 2 leg sessions that I'm doing. You can combo any and all of these things so long as you actually understand what's required to achieve your goals, what it is that you want to do, and then you put a structured plan in place that lets all of those things work alongside each other. And like I've said in recent episodes, Obviously, if we're doing things like gym and group fitness, etc., we are going to, quote, burn calories, and there is going to be a little bit of calorie expenditure and calories burnt through that training. But like I said in those episodes, it's not a huge part of our overall calories burnt. It's not something we can monitor or need to monitor very closely. So that's why I think the way that we should set up our training is asking those questions of what is it that I want to achieve and what do I enjoy doing? Then structuring an effective, intelligent plan based on those answers. If we consistently have that plan in place over a few weeks, alongside our nutrition protocols and our step protocols and anything else we're doing, then we can know that that plan has been put in place for those other goals that we have. And it's sitting there playing alongside our nutrition and our steps and everything. And if we need to adjust anything to progress towards fat loss, etc., we can adjust nutrition, we can adjust steps, but we can keep that training in place and we can keep that training consistent because it's been put in place for other goals, not so much for the fat loss goals. So if you don't understand that, definitely listen to the last 3 or 4 episodes and really just understand that our, quote, calories burnt comes from so many areas outside of gym and outside of training. So we don't need the focus of our training to be, quote, burning calories because it's so small, it's so minor. Like I said, it's very hard to monitor, so we don't need to monitor it. And if we have put it in place consistently over time, it becomes like a constant variable. So yes, it's a factor in our calories in versus calories out, but it's a constant factor. It's going to stay the same. And then we can adjust our nutrition and steps alongside it if we think we need to, if we want a bigger deficit, smaller deficit, surplus, etc. in place, while that training is working towards those other goals. And then if we connect that back to the last episode we did about achieving the toned physique, if you have a goal to achieve a toned physique and you haven't listened to that episode, definitely do so, because the information we spoke about in there will start to come into this question. If we've got that question of like, what is my goal? What do I want to work towards? If the answer is a toned physique, we want to understand everything we spoke about in there. A toned physique is achieved through building a bit of muscle. Bring that back to what do I need to put in place with my training? I need some effective, structured, progressive training in place that starts to move me towards building muscle. And then on a separate note, you might have training in place for performance goals. So you might be working toward things like running, half marathons, high rocks, triathlons, anything like that. So obviously your training is very intentionally structured to progress towards those things. That's awesome. And again, that just kind of backs up the point that we've just made and we've made in those recent episodes of you wouldn't adjust that training if you wanted to progress towards like fat loss or muscle gain or anything like that. You wouldn't adjust that training because that training hasn't been put in place for those things. That training's been put in place for your performance goals. So that's going to stay consistent and that's going to stay progressing in its own way towards those goals. And if you need to adjust anything alongside that, it would be nutrition that gets adjusted to either fuel us more or cut back a little bit or anything like that. And as a little bit of a side note, in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to talk about juggling body composition and performance goals. So if you do work towards those things I just said, like triathlons, marathons, etc., but you've also got body composition goals, it can be very hard to optimize both and work towards both. I'm going to speak about that in the next episode. So I'm not going to get too far into that topic today. But if we come back to like, what is the point of training? Why are we training? The point of training can be whatever we want it to be. We can ask ourselves those questions. Do I have goals to build my physique? Therefore, I need training in place for that. Do I want training in place for social fitness, mental health? Do I want to join a team and go and do a team sport so that I'm active and I'm moving and I've got that in place to support my health, but I'm having a great time and making new friends, etc. There's so many things we can put in place and it's really just going to come down to the individual, what we actually want to be doing and what we want to get out of it. And then we can reverse engineer and really structure a plan to work towards all of those things. And then know that if we do have body composition goals as well, our nutrition and our steps have been put in place alongside that training and can be adjusted at times if need be to keep supporting the body composition goals and progressing towards those while the training is in place to progress towards the other things that we want to achieve. So I'm going to wrap that episode up there, a nice little short one just to get the wheels turning and get you thinking about all of that stuff, especially if you do feel like you kind of drag yourself through training or through sessions and things that you just don't enjoy, but you feel like you, quote, should be doing. Or if you feel like you've had the same training in place for a while and it's just a bit of a habit, but it might actually be a little bit stale and you're a bit over it, it can be cool to just kind of ask those questions and do a little bit of an assessment of like, Do I need to mix this up at all? If you don't, like I always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you love what you're doing and it's moving you in the direction you want to go, amen. That is literally the sweet spot. That's awesome. But it's cool to just understand why we train, what we can train for, the fact that we can train for so many things so we don't just have to pigeonhole and be like, oh, I should do X, Y, Z. We really want to understand, no, I can do anything. So I want to have the knowledge and the skill and the ability to decide what I want that to look like for me at any time. We speak about this so much with nutrition, like understanding nutrition so we can implement it in a way that works for us. I think training is exactly the same. So just some cool things to think about there. If you haven't listened to those last 2 or 3 episodes and you do feel like you're training in a bit of a shitty way, I would definitely listen to those and just start to shift that mentality a little bit, because once you get training in place that you enjoy and you're like motivated and excited to progress with because you've actually chosen to progress with that thing, that's such a cool feeling. I think there's going to be a lot of people listening that work towards either like gym-based goals and strength goals or performance goals and running goals and things like that, where you're not training to burn calories. You're not training because you have to. You're training because you've got this bigger goal and you're like, oh, I just know that it makes sense for me to go and do X, Y, Z today to move towards that goal. That is the point of training. So we want to make sure we've got that in place, and it is a completely different thing compared to feeling like we have to drag ourselves through shitty exercise that we don't enjoy doing. So definitely have a listen to those last couple of episodes. If you've got a fat loss goal and you've just stumbled across the Eat Like Ruby podcast, go and have a listen to the last 4 or 5 weeks of episodes. And if you do have goals to build your physique, build your shape, work on your strength, get that toned physique, all of this stuff we keep talking about, just know that we've got heaps of combos to come about that. Like I said, that is absolutely my jam. So if you want to get structured, progressive, wicked resistance training in place, you can apply to do that in Eat Like Ruby right now. You can go to eatlikeruby.com.au. Or if you've got performance goals and you are working towards those cool things like marathons and high rocks and turf games and triathlons and all of those awesome things, we've obviously got plenty more to say for you guys as well. So I will be back very soon. Like I said, I'm going to talk about juggling those things alongside body composition goals, because I think that's a really cool topic to cover and just a really cool thing to make sure we've got sorted when we're working towards awesome goals like that. But that is all from me today. I will be back with that combo very soon. The Eat Like Ruby podcast is not a substitute for professional medical or dietary advice. The advice given in this episode is general in nature and should not be used to treat any medical conditions, health conditions, illnesses, injuries, and/or any nutrition-related conditions, deficiencies, or similar. This podcast is not to be used as or in place of medical advice or dietary advice. Please consult your healthcare professional before implementing any of the advice, information, or protocols discussed in this episode.